Marcus Hale stood in the center of the private chamber, his breath steady but his mind alert. The walls shimmered with a soft, golden light, a living display of Aurelian craftsmanship that seemed to hum with energy. It was quiet, almost too quiet. Outside, the sounds of the palace moved in rhythm like a distant heartbeat, but inside, everything was suspended in stillness. The queen herself had requested his presence, a situation both unusual and tense. He had been summoned not as a diplomat or advisor, but as a ceremonial protector, a role that brought him close to the highest level of power in the Aurelian Star Kingdom, a kingdom where humans had rarely even been seen beyond the low-ranking halls. Marcus's armor lay in a polished crate beside him, pieces stacked and arranged with the precision of a ritual. Unlike Earth's military uniforms, this armor was alive in its design. It flowed with the body's movements, adaptive to the wearer's strength and stance, and embedded with faint energy conduits that could augment speed and reflexes. But Marcus's hands hesitated over the straps. He knew his skills, his physicality, and his training, but this was different. He wasn't preparing for a battlefield today. He was preparing to face the eyes of the queen, the ruler of an empire whose people measured destiny by bloodlines, prophecies, and symbols etched into their very bones. The queen entered without warning. She moved with grace, each step deliberate, like the sway of a star's orbit. Her form was tall and commanding, her skin glimmering with a subtle luminescence, and her eyes were deep pools of violet that seemed to pierce through the layers of one's mind. The attendants behind her fell silent, a river of stillness in motion, each waiting for her signal, each wary of the human in their midst. "Stand," she commanded, her voice calm but carrying the weight of centuries of authority. Marcus obeyed without hesitation. The words were not harsh, but they carried the kind of expectation only someone who had never lost a battle could produce. Marcus began fitting the armor, piece by piece. He secured the chest plate first, feeling its adaptive material tighten like a second skin. Then came the gauntlets, the greaves, and finally the helmet, which he set aside for the moment. The queen watched, her gaze assessing yet not overtly hostile. It was curiosity mingled with caution. She had summoned him here, and yet something about the scene made her posture uneasy. As he fastened the last straps across his shoulders, he heard the faint sound of a gasp, soft, almost imperceptible. He ignored it. In his mind, he was focused only on the familiar routine of preparation. But when he turned to adjust the rear plating, he revealed the back of his body, the place where his most personal mark lay. The queen froze. It was not a pause of hesitation or surprise. It was the stillness of someone confronted with a vision that should not exist. Her attendants shifted nervously, sensing the sudden tension, their hands inching toward weapons they were suddenly unsure they should draw. But the queen raised a hand, and all motion ceased. On Marcus's back was a tattoo, etched not with simple ink, but with a complex pattern of fractured stars encircling a broken crown. It was ancient, intricate, and unmistakably human, a mark that no Aurelian, no species in the known galaxy should have seen. Yet the queen's eyes traced every line, every curve, every hidden meaning within it as if reading the history of the universe itself. "Where," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "did your people find this symbol?" Marcus froze for a moment, surprised at the intensity of her reaction. "It is not a discovery," he said carefully, keeping his tone neutral. "It is a legacy." The queen's gaze sharpened. "Legacy?" she repeated, leaning forward slightly. "Humans do not carry the marks of the Starbreakers. You cannot. The records, they do not exist." "How?" Her words faltered, a crack in the facade of centuries of command. Marcus looked down at the tattoo, his fingers brushing the edges where the pattern curled against his shoulder blades. To him, it was a reminder of survival, of human persistence through centuries of conflict. He had received it after completing a mission so secret that even most humans did not know of it, a mission that had pushed him to the brink of life and death, against forces that would have overwhelmed any other species. The Queen's voice broke the silence again. "This mark, it belonged to the Starbreaker. You bear the symbol of a species that was erased from history. Those who carried it were said to have ended entire empires, yet they vanished. And now you—" her hand trembled slightly, though she tried to mask it with a delicate gesture. Marcus's heart pounded, but he maintained a calm exterior. He had faced life-threatening missions, battles with creatures from uncharted worlds and the chaos of collapsing star systems, but he had never seen fear or awe like this in the eyes of an entire civilization's ruler. "I carry no claim," he said, "only survival. Humanity has endured what others could not. This tattoo, it reminds me of that." The Queen took a slow step back, as if the weight of history had pressed down on her shoulders. She gestured toward the chamber doors. "Seal this room," she ordered. "No one enters or leaves until I have answers." The attendants obeyed instantly, their movements precise, almost mechanical. Marcus stood silently, watching the golden walls shimmer in the sudden stillness of isolation. He realized the significance of the moment. This was not just a simple ceremonial appearance. This was a reckoning. The Queen was confronted with proof that humans were more than mere newcomers, more than fragile biological experiments in a galaxy dominated by ancient, powerful species. Humans had survived, adapted, and returned, not as victims, but as forces of nature disguised in a fragile form. "Tell me," the Queen said finally, her voice steadier but no less intense, "how does a human bear the mark of the Starbreaker?" That lineage was lost, wiped from every record, every history book, every archive in the galaxy. Marcus took a deep breath. "You believe it was lost, but some things never truly vanish. Humanity is patient, Queen. We wait, we endure. And sometimes we return stronger than you imagine." A silence fell over the room again. Outside, distant alarms blared as the palace prepared for the summit, but inside, time felt suspended. Marcus felt the energy of the armor beneath his skin, a reminder that survival was not just a story of the past, it was preparation for the present. The Queen moved closer, her eyes scanning his back with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and recognition. She traced the broken crown with a delicate finger, though she did not touch the skin. "Legends," she whispered. "They said no one would bear this mark again, that any who did would bring ruin or salvation, but never both." Marcus's lips pressed into a firm line. "Then perhaps you should not underestimate us." His voice carried no arrogance, only a calm certainty forged in countless battles. The Queen's eyes narrowed, her mind working through centuries of prophecy and history. She had ruled with knowledge of her people's past, confident that no human, or any other species, could defy the course of destiny. And yet, here stood a living contradiction. A human bearing a symbol that could shake the foundation of her empire's understanding of the galaxy. "What is your name?" she asked finally, her voice almost a whisper. "Marcus Hale," he said, "protector of humanity, envoy of the conquered." The Queen's lips parted slightly, as if the words carried weight beyond their sound. She stepped back and studied him from a distance, as though trying to reconcile the insignificance she had expected with the presence of undeniable significance before her. "I must speak with my council," she said at last, though her tone suggested hesitation. "But understand this, what you carry on your back is not just a tattoo, it is a declaration, and declarations have consequences." Marcus nodded, feeling the tension in the chamber slowly ebb, though he remained alert. The room would no longer be a simple ceremonial space. It had become a crucible of history, survival, and the quiet, unshakable power of humanity. As he adjusted the straps of his armor once more, Marcus felt the hum of the energy conduits beneath his skin. Each vibration was a reminder of preparedness, of training, of countless ancestors who had survived wars that had never been recorded. The queen watched him, silent, her mind a storm of fear, awe, and calculation. Marcus turned slightly, giving her one final glimpse of the tattoo. The broken crown, the fractured stars, it was more than art. It was a story written in blood, survival, and endurance. And in that moment, the queen understood, without question, that humans were not a species to be underestimated. The chamber remained silent as the light shifted, casting long shadows across the floor. Outside, the galaxy continued its indifferent motion, unaware that in a small room in the heart of the Aurelian Star Kingdom, a human had silently reminded a civilization of something they had long forgotten. Survival was not weakness, and humanity had mastered it in ways the galaxy was only beginning to comprehend. Marcus tightened his gauntlets, ready for whatever came next. The queen's frozen gaze followed his every movement, her mind racing with centuries of prophecy, history, and caution. And as the doors sealed with a soft hum, Marcus knew that the real challenge was only beginning. The mark on his back was not just a memory, it was a key, and the galaxy would soon see the power it unlocked. The doors of the chamber sealed with a soft, resonant hum, cutting off the corridor beyond. Marcus Hale felt the tension settle into the room like a living thing. The queen's violet eyes never left him, watching every movement as though expecting the armor itself to betray him. But Marcus did not move rashly. He knew his role. He was a protector, a soldier trained to survive when the odds were impossible, and he understood that now the galaxy itself was testing him. "Tell me everything," the queen said, her voice steady despite the tremor he had seen earlier. "Your people, the symbol. How do you bear the mark of the Starbreaker?" Marcus straightened, his armored shoulders rigid. "You already know some of it," he said. "Humanity has been underestimated for centuries. The mark is a legacy from the first humans who left Earth to explore the stars. Some were lost, stranded in uncharted systems. They survived wars that no one remembers because the galaxy erased them from history. That is the symbol of their endurance." The queen's lips pressed into a thin line. "Legends," she said. "They were supposed to be extinct. And yet you walk in front of me, alive, bearing their mark. Why? How?" Marcus shrugged slightly, the armor shifting with the movement. "We endure because we must, because giving up is not in our nature. They fought to survive, and their lessons were passed down. Not through words or books, through blood, training, and stories told in secrecy. I bear it because I survived, and because the galaxy will need humanity again." The queen's attendants exchanged glances, uneasy. They had been trained to respect their ruler, but even they could feel the weight of the moment. Here was a human, a species they had always regarded as fragile, standing in the heart of their empire, carrying proof that humans were far older, far more dangerous than the histories allowed. "You speak of survival," the queen said, her tone now sharper. "Yet the conquered will not trust humans. You are considered impulsive, dangerous, unfit for interstellar authority. How do you expect to survive against fleets that will move against you?" Marcus's eyes narrowed. "The conquered underestimates what humanity can do. We do not rely on numbers. We do not rely on technology alone. We rely on adaptation. We rely on patience. And when the time comes, we rely on courage and calculation together. That is how we survive. That is how we fight back when the galaxy thinks we are weak." A long pause followed. The queen's expression shifted from fear to curiosity, then to the faintest hint of respect. "Show me," she said finally. "If what you say is true, then show me that humanity has learned from the Starbreakers." Marcus nodded once and adjusted the armor systems. Beneath the surface, small energy conduits glimmered faintly, the armor responding to his biosignals and movements. It was a combination of human ingenuity and battlefield experience, honed over years of secret missions. He flexed his arms, feeling the adaptive plating adjust to his muscle movements. The queen watched, still cautious but increasingly aware that humans were not what the galaxy had believed. Suddenly, alarms echoed in the distance, louder and more urgent than before. The Queen's attendant stiffened and her hand rose to calm them, but her eyes never left Marcus. "Intruders," she said. "Enemy fleets. They have learned of your presence. This chamber, this palace, will be their target." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Then we do not wait, we act." The Queen's gaze sharpened. "Act. Against fleets that outnumber you 10 to 1. Against ships armed with weapons capable of annihilating entire cities." Marcus stepped forward. "Numbers do not win wars. Adaptation, strategy, and courage do." He turned slightly to show her the tattoo on his back once more. The Starbreakers did not conquer with superior technology alone. They survived when everyone else would have surrendered. They survived because they refused to lose. That is humanity. For a moment the Queen said nothing. Then she spoke softly, almost to herself. "I had hoped it was just a myth. I did not think humans could carry the legacy forward." And yet, her voice trailed off as she studied him, the room's golden walls reflecting the faint glow from Marcus's armor. The alarms grew louder, signaling the approach of enemy fighters through the outer corridors. The Queen's council had been delayed, and the palace defenses had yet to mobilize fully. In that moment, Marcus realized that hesitation could cost lives. He activated the armor fully, the subtle hum of energy conduits filling the chamber. The Queen stepped back, watching as he moved with precision and confidence. His stance, his breathing, the way he calculated each motion, every action spoke of countless battles fought, lessons learned, and survival instinct honed to perfection. "Then show me," she whispered again, this time with an intensity that suggested she truly wanted to see the proof of humanity's claim. Marcus moved to the center of the chamber, scanning the surrounding walls. The armor systems interfaced with the room's energy grid, a compatibility he had discovered only minutes earlier. The golden light shifted, responding to the armor's energy signature, creating barriers and channels of force that could redirect incoming attacks. It was subtle, elegant, and deadly. The first intruders arrived moments later. They were a reconnaissance squad, fast, heavily armed, expecting an easy target. But Marcus was ready. With movements honed over years of combat, he intercepted the first wave. Each strike was precise, calculated, and efficient. Energy pulses from the armor neutralized their weapons without lethal force, though it rendered their systems inoperative. The Queen watched, her eyes widening as she saw a single human counter an entire squad of elite warriors. "Impossible," she muttered under her breath. "No species should be able to do that." Marcus continued, moving seamlessly, adapting to each attack with rapid analysis and instinct. The attackers were strong, but they underestimated the human's ability to think, to improvise, and to endure. Each movement was a lesson in survival, an echo of the Starbreakers' methods. As the last intruder fell to the floor, incapacitated but unharmed, Marcus turned to face the Queen. She stood frozen, a mix of awe and fear written across her features. This is why you survive," she whispered. "You are not like the humans we thought we knew." Marcus's voice was calm, resolute. "We are always more than you think, always." The next challenge came swiftly. Enemy ships had breached the palace perimeter, firing energy beams that tore through defensive barriers. Marcus moved to a control panel integrated into the chamber, linking his armor with the palace's defense grid. The systems responded instantly, using his combat instincts as algorithms to target incoming threats. Energy shields rose, redirects occurred, and the enemy fire was neutralized with a combination of human intuition and technology. The Queen watched silently, slowly realizing the magnitude of what she was witnessing. Humans were not only survivors, they were strategists, innovators, and warriors capable of turning desperation into opportunity. Each moment Marcus adapted, Each subtle shift in tactics demonstrated a species that refused to be confined by expectations or fear. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Marcus lost all sense of time. Wave after wave of attackers tested the palace defenses, yet each was countered with precision. Through it all, the queen remained, studying Marcus, understanding at last that humans carried a legacy that could not be ignored. Finally, the attacks subsided. The enemy fleet retreated, their forces disoriented and demoralized by a single human's skill and strategy. Marcus lowered his gauntlets, the armor systems winding down, and turned to face the queen once more. She stepped forward, her expression no longer fear but recognition. "You are extraordinary," she said softly. "Not because of your weapons or your armor, but because of what you carry inside. The Starbreakers, their legacy lives through you." Marcus shook his head slightly. "I am no legend. I am just human, but humans endure. That is enough to change the course of a battle, even a war. That is enough to remind the galaxy that we are not weak, and we are not to be underestimated." The queen nodded slowly, a new understanding settling in her mind. "The conquered will have to see this," she said. "They cannot ignore humanity anymore. You are a symbol, Marcus Hale, of what they failed to recognize for centuries." He offered her a small, respectful nod. "Symbols matter little without action, but humans, we do both." The golden light of the chamber shifted as if in agreement. Marcus felt the hum of the armor fade, yet the energy of the moment remained. A human had stood at the center of alien power, not as a victim, not as an outsider, but as a force to be reckoned with. The queen's fear had transformed into respect, her awe tempered with the realization that humans had returned stronger, wiser, and more dangerous than any history record had admitted. For the first time, the Aurelian Star Kingdom truly understood what humans were capable of. They were patient, they were adaptive, they were enduring, and when the galaxy believed they were fragile, humans proved they were anything but. As Marcus Hale stood in the chamber, the queen's eyes never leaving him, a quiet understanding passed between them. The galaxy's perception of humanity was changing. Legends once thought extinct were alive again, walking, fighting, and surviving in ways that could not be erased. Humanity was no longer underestimated. They were unstoppable in their patience, unwavering in their courage, and unstoppable in their drive to endure. The doors of the chamber finally opened, and the queen spoke to her attendants, her voice calm but resolute. "Prepare the conquered. Humanity has returned." Marcus watched as the palace shifted back into motion. He had survived the test, demonstrated the legacy, and reminded the galaxy that humans were not weak, impulsive, or insignificant. They were patient, enduring, and unstoppable. And the Starbreaker's mark on his back was more than a tattoo. It was a warning, a promise, and the galaxy would learn to respect it.